Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, August 12th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. We titled yesterday's episode A New Hope for the Big Ten, so I guess this makes today the Big Ten strikes back. Tuesday, we got news that still sounds pretty shocking. There will not be a 2020 Ohio State football season. It is the first year since 1889 that the Buckeyes will not play a single football game in a calendar year. Buckeye Scoop's Bill Greene joins us this morning. Bill, my first question for you. What the heck, man? What the heck?
Yeah, I'm very surprised. We had got the preliminary vote over the weekend. Looked like it was 10-2 against. Then Sunday night, the Twitter exploded with the players and coaches, and I really thought the tide had turned. And I felt really good that the tide had turned for Ohio State, that from president on down, they were aligned that we want to play. And I really thought that would carry weight throughout the conference. And I kind of thought other schools would feel the same pressure that I think Ohio State felt from their coach and their players. But obviously that didn't happen. So I'm shocked. And, with the way things have gone this year in 2020, I probably hard to be shocked about anything anymore. But I didn't expect this. I thought they might delay a vote maybe for a week or 10 days just to let things kind of calm down. And obviously that didn't happen. So they've made their decision, and we're going to see the long-term effects of this. I think, if they all cancel and there's no football this year, I don't think the long-term effects are going to be that dangerous. But if the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC go ahead and run a schedule this year, I think it's devastating for Ohio State.
Yeah, and we can talk about that again in a minute. But my first question for you was ACC, SEC, Big 12. They're not saying we're definitely going to play, but
Right.
They're just kind of in wait and see mode, and they've all kind of pushed. I mean, the SEC pushed its scheduled start date back to September 26th, and
Right.
that the obvious question seems like, what's the harm in waiting a month to see what the situation is at that point? I mean, Gene Smith talked about the fact that things had, the situation had changed a lot in the last few days. Like, well, the situation could change again in the next month. What's the harm in kind of kicking the can and just saying, okay, we're going to push back the start date a couple weeks and see where we are kind of middle of September?
Yeah, I would have loved to have a follow-up question for Gene Smith. What specifically has changed since you put out a schedule not that long ago? I don't know what changed. I think the numbers are all very positive. And when you look at the numbers of the football staff and players, I mean, it's actually shocking to me how low things really were. I mean, the virus is here. It's not going away. We have to learn to live with the virus. We are learning to live with the virus. And I think the sports community was way out in front. I thought the Harbaugh letter from the other day was amazing, dealing with he actually laid out the amount of testing they've done and how few positives they've had. And, to think that these kids are more at risk in a structured environment where they're being tested twice a week, as opposed to turning them loose on the campus with no football and telling them to have a blast, it's ridiculous to me. I mean, it makes no sense. And you saw that from the parents. Who loves Paris Johnson more? Who cares for Paris more? Would that be Monica Johnson, his mother, or some bureaucrat in Chicago? I mean, that's an easy answer. You know what I mean? I heard Dabo Swinney talk today. He's got 2 kids on the football team at Clemson, his own children. He wants them to play. So I don't get this, Tom. I don't know what's changed. I'm convinced it's liability. I'm convinced the lawyers got to them and told them we need more time on this, or we could conceivably be open to losing billions of dollars down the road. That's what I think happened. I think everything else is just total BS. They've now created this new phony heart issue thing that we haven't heard about since February. That just came up in the last 2 days. So I think it's, they're lying about this whole thing. And, I don't know what else to say. I'm very, very disappointed. I have a grandson, and I want him in school and in sports. My son-in-law coaches at Perry High School. He needs to be in the building and coaching. My daughter is a teacher. She needs to be in the building teaching. I mean, I believe very strongly in that, and I'm disappointed in what has taken place.
Well, I mean, you asked a question earlier about Paris Johnson and who cares more about him, his mom or Kevin Warren. Well, who does Kevin Warren care more about? Because Kevin Warren's son is a football player at Mississippi State. And he was asked on Big Ten Network, hey, are you going to pull your son off the team and have him not play? And he didn't answer that. And he didn't answer a lot of stuff on Big Ten Network, which is a whole separate conversation, which you can hear on Buckeye Weekly if you want to hear Tony Gerdeman and I's thoughts on that. But, it just, it's easy to dismiss the liability thing as just as, some kind of conspiratorial thing. But, if Kevin Warren really believes it's not safe to play football, why on earth can Kevin Warren not just say, yes, I believe it's not safe to play football, and therefore I'm pulling my kid off the team? I mean, Kevin Warren presumably cares more about his son than he does about a random player at Purdue or Iowa. So why is Kevin Warren's son, why can Kevin Warren not say that? And that of all the stuff, and there's a whole lot to dig into on this whole thing, but of all the things that were just, bizarre on Big Ten Network with him and his inability to answer, that one was really like, none of this makes sense if you
No,
think
it
about
does not. I agree. It makes no sense. They're obviously lying, covering up. They're not telling the truth. And that's what really infuriates people. If you just level with people and tell the truth, I think people deal with that a lot better than when they feel like they're being lied to. And I think that's why there's so much anger right now at Ohio State. And there is a lot of anger within that program right now. And not directed at Gene Smith, or the school, but directed at the Big Ten. And the players feel like they were deceived, lied to, misled. They've done everything they were asked to do. The Ohio State program has really been a model program for how you can operate through the coronavirus. And I would add that Michigan has been as well. Very impressive numbers. Very impressive how serious everybody took this. And to have the rug pulled out from under them, a couple days after you release the schedule, it's ridiculous. Makes no sense. I'm not in a position to push for answers, but the people that are, I hope they do really push for answers. And, I'm pretty upset about this, and I can understand why these players and coaches are upset.
Now, you mentioned Ohio State is angry about this. That's because Ohio State voted no on this proposal. Ohio State was, Gene Smith's statement basically said they wanted to kind of kick the decision a little while down the road. You don't have to make a decision right this second, so don't rush into it. Dr. Christina Johnson, who's Ohio State's incoming president, was on that call and was the person who cast that no vote for Ohio State. The president's office confirmed that to me on Tuesday afternoon. And there was talk about the Buckeyes potentially playing some kind of a barnstorming season or joining the SEC or, joining the Big 12. Gene Smith said Tuesday evening that was not going to be possible. It did not sound like that was really going to be a possible option. So the next time we see meaningful Ohio State football is apparently going to be next spring if things go according to plan now. How likely do you think that is, that Ohio State, I mean, it may depend on, if the SEC and ACC play this fall, who's Ohio State going to play? Are they going to play the MAC all next spring? Are they just going to play Big Ten teams? And how likely do you think it is that they actually can play a season next spring?
I don't think it's likely at all. I think it would be so harmful from a physical standpoint to ask these kids to play 25 football games in a 6-month period. We obviously, from the news that came down today, we care about the kids, but you're going to make them play 25 football games in a short period of time. That is inconceivable to me that you would do that to these kids. They're far more in danger playing that many games with no recovery time in between seasons than they are from the coronavirus. And the numbers bear that out. The data bears it out. It's not just me throwing stuff off the top of my head. I mean, the numbers bear it out. So can't do that. You can't have them play that many games in a short period of time. My guess is that, barring some sort of miracle where Ohio State ends up with a barnstorming tour, then we're going to see them next fall is what my guess is. And I'm still not convinced that the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 are going to be playing. I mean, there's more of a chance that they play than there is the Big 10, but yet let's see what happens here. And again, I don't know why anyone would even kick the can down the road. Things have been going great. Look at the numbers at Ohio State. Look at the numbers at Michigan. rather than kick the can down the road, let's get going before, we get into flu season, later on in the fall. Let's go now. We're doing great. The testing numbers are amazing right now. The protocols they're following are amazing right now. No, don't even delay it, let alone cancel it. Put the thing on the tee and let's go. We're doing great right now. Let's take advantage of this, how well things are going. It makes no sense to me, Tom.
Well, we'll have a lot of time to break things down, including the impact this could have on recruiting and the current roster if other conferences do in fact play safely this fall, as you suggested. And yeah, boy is right there.
We don't want to break that one down.
Yeah,
Tom.
well, we're having lots of conversations we don't want to have this week. That's all right. Just in the short term, just in the next month or so, if the ACC, SEC, possibly Big 12 are still playing, do you think Ohio State could lose guys to transfers? In the coming week, in the coming month? Before this season, guys just saying, you know what, I don't want to wait another year. Like I'm going to go play for Florida or Mississippi State or wherever else.
Well, all I'm going to say is I have a good friend who coaches in one of the 3 conferences that may still be playing. And he called me today and he was talking about his roster where they have a few spots open right now. And his thinking is, at the worst, they will look to fill those spots with grad transfers from Ohio State or Michigan, the top programs, where, ordinarily you wouldn't be able to get a kid like that. But that same kid is not going to sit out this year. So he's on the market now. Then he said there's talk in the conference of expanding the rosters to go to maybe 100 or 105 on scholarship, to be able to combat any outbreak that you might have this fall. If the SEC adds 20 scholarships per school and they make the kids that are forced to sit out in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 instantly eligible, they could pick that whole roster clean. And then you're going to run into next year when the NFL season ends in December. Gee, what coach would be high on the NFL's list of a young, dynamic coach you might want to have to lead your team? Yeah, how about Ryan Day? This could be so disastrous for Ohio State. And I don't want to throw out the Armageddon scenario, but we're all adults here, and this could be devastating for Ohio State. Again, the next step is to see what the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, what do they do, okay? If they play and if they get granted extra scholarships, they could pick that Ohio State bone clean. It could be like when Penn State ran into the trouble, Joe Paterno and Urban went and picked that Penn State roster clean. You could see that again. It could be really ugly because you wouldn't be talking just about a recruiting class. You could be talking potentially all of your best players. So we don't want to think about that yet, but this is not good, Tom.
Yeah.
Unless the other conference is closed down too, then it's still not good, but it's not the Armageddon scenario.
Yeah, there is still a lot to develop. This is very much still a developing story. We are scheduled to talk to Ohio State players and coaches later on today, so we'll have much more on that throughout the day at BuckeyeScoop.com. Please check there for that. Bill and Mark Givler are dropping a new episode of the Gives in the Bank podcast to discuss this whole situation and its impact on the present and future of Ohio State football in a lot more detail. You can find that. You can also find Tony Girdman and I released a new episode of Buckeye Weekly last night to break it all down as well. You can find both of those on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. Please leave us a rating and review as well. That really helps other folks find our shows. So thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow.